Most polyglots I know can order coffee in 15 languages. However, none of them can have an uncomfortable conversation in any of those languages. That's not multilingualism, that's tourism. Welcome to the Hyperpolyglot Activist. Learn languages, make a difference. For those of you who don't know me or are wondering why I've been away for 6 months, my name is Dr. Carlos Yeber Lopez. I am a linguist, a hyperpolyglot, and a language activist. And I'm here back with something to say. A language tourist is someone who visits a language the same way a tourist visits a country. The tourists like to take a few pictures here and there. The equivalent will be to post videos online, say on YouTube. And also tourists like to buy souvenirs. That will be the equivalent of taking an italki class here or having a look at vocabulary lists, etc. And then once they've done that, tourists leave the country. The same happens with language learners. Once they have done a few videos, checked a few Duolingo lessons, they exit the language, having only a superficial knowledge of it, just like a tourist only has a superficial knowledge of the country they just visited. Now, I'm not saying there is no value in that. There's a time and place for it, but let us not confuse tourism with something deeper than that. Let us not confuse superficial language learning, which is what the polyglot industry sells, with actual language learning and activism. And actual language activism transcends collecting languages like one collects stamps in a passport, transcends being fast, painless, and Instagram ready. It is an actual meaningful endeavor, perhaps the only actual meaningful endeavor when it comes to the polyglot community. See, the problem is that the polyglot industry, by which I mean the ensemble of four interconnected sectors, meaning social media, language learning platforms, polyglot gatherings, and the printing press, has turned language learning into a lifestyle product. And who buys lifestyle products? What are the main targets of this propaganda? People who have enough money, time, and cultural capital to treat self-improvement as a hobby. And those are overwhelmingly upper middle class white men who nevertheless pretend that they're engaging in something universal that at the end of the day reproduces the very hierarchies it aims to transcend. That is not an accident, that is ideology. This is what I call the polyglot matrix, meaning the set of assumptions about language or language ideology that prevent people from actually seeing language and language learning for what they are. The polyglot matrix tells you that the goal of language learning is fluency. That fluency means sounding like a native speaker. And that having an accent is not something inevitable, but it's actually a deficit vis-a-vis that idealized quote-unquote native speaker. It also tells you that there are languages that are worth more than others. And surprise, surprise, the languages that are worth more, supposedly, are precisely the colonial languages. These are not neutral observations about language. These are political claims dressed up as common sense. Because as Antonio Gramsci said, common sense is never neutral. It's just the political zeitgeist dressed up, naturalized. As long as we keep naturalizing and taking for granted these political claims, we're going to continue to produce language tourists, people who perform cosmopolitanism as opposed to engaging in solidarity. People who speak to be admired rather than to listen. People who collect languages rather than being changed by them. So what's the alternative? What does it look like to use language as an activist tool rather than a lifestyle accessory? That is the question. Well, for starters, it might look like learning the language of a community that has been historically silenced to amplify it their voices rather than to enhance your CV. This is precisely what I do with Judeo-Spanish at Ladino 21 or with Chabacano. These are traditionally marginalized languages that need our help. That's the difference between a language tourist on the one hand and a hyperpolyglot activist. It's not how many languages you speak, even if you could count them, but what do you do with that learning? And whose life is better because of that? And that's why I've been away for a few months, because I just don't want to run another Polyglot channel. Nobody needs more superficial language learning. This is for people who take language learning seriously, who understand or want to understand the political and ideological and economic stakes of learning a language in the 21st century. This is not a performance, this is real life. And this is what this channel is going to be about from now on. Deeper questions, harder analysis, ready for a community of people who want to ask those questions with me. Welcome on board. If this resonated with you, there is a whole community of people having exactly this conversation. We challenge each other, we share our ideas, and we have monthly Zoom discussions with yours truly. You don't need to speak 10 languages or more. You just need to be interested in languages and in how to make an impact through language. If you want to join our community, please click on the link below, and I'll see you on the other end.